I would invite you to unmute and then for the four-way test and then remute and save your questions for the end if you would please. So the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And will be
beneficial to all concerned? I think we're getting better at that. So here's our agenda today. We'll do a little bit of tech tips. We'll briefly run through some status updates on your clubs, best practices, no more than 15 minutes for that. And then we have a guest, Tom Gump from Minnesota, who's going to talk to us about starting a cause-based club. And then we will adjourn, very simple. And so we should be done no later than 15 minutes past the hour. So tech tips for mute and unmute, which is really important for these online meetings. If you would look on your screen, hover over your big screen, video screen, and you should see a menu at the bottom. On the left-hand side of that bottom menu is, it looks like a microphone on my screen, but if you push that, you can mute and unmute. It's a toggle. If you're on the phone, *6 toggles mute and unmute. Okay, so then on to participants list. You'll probably want to pull that up because that's where you raise your hand. So if you toggle or put your cursor over the screen again at the bottom, you see that menu. In the middle, there's a bunch of toggle switches. One of those is participants. And if you hit that, you'll get a list of participants. For me, it pops up over on the right side of the screen. And if you look down at the bottom of that box, you'll see raise hand. That will put notice, and Nicole will pay attention to this for us, that you have something to say. Be sure and unraise your hand. It's a toggle switch when you're done. Please do hold questions till the end. It just seems to work out better on these online meetings. You can also, on that participants list, hit the mute me and unmute me on that. That's another way to do it. A third way is in your thumbnail of all people. You know, you'll see videos. These are for people on video. You can go over to your thumbnail, and also there's an option to mute. Okay, so back down to the lower menu. In the center again, there's chat box. And if you toggle on that, you'll get a chat box. And so you can see, you can carry on a conversation quietly, and you can do it either to everyone. So you see at the bottom of that chat box, if you open it up, there's a blue box. I think the default is everyone. So you can toggle on that or hit that down arrow, and you can select a participant to chat with privately. So that's it. I did have a couple of tech tips last week that came out over on the chat, and I believe it was private, and they had to do with camera position. So one was to make sure that you don't have a window or a light source behind you, which makes things difficult for other people to see. And another one was pay attention to your camera position. So this person was saying, yeah, if you could raise your camera up on your computer, so we're not looking up your nostrils, that would be nice. But so pay attention if you can to where your camera's pointing. And then another thing is know where your camera is on your computer. And if you look at that, it looks like you're looking at the participants. So it's difficult for me to do because I have to look at the screen. Any other tech tips for Zoom? Okay, so let's go into club status, and remember to raise your hand and Nicole will call on you, and then be sure and unmute. So how are your clubs doing with staying in contact in this new environment?
John Schneider here from Lamar's. We've been meeting weekly now on Zoom, and it's been going very well. And today we are having a regular program for the first time, so we'll see how that works. We get, at least half our members to show up, so that's, not too far away from a regular attendance.
Nice.
This is Doug Lynn, DGN, and member of Rushmore Rotary. Today we had our Rushmore Rotary had its first Zoom meeting, and we had 43
Wow.
in attendance. And we're not sure, I'm not sure if it's someplace between 43 and 50 members in attendance, which is actually about what a normal meeting would have. We did have a membership report this morning, and we've actually maintained our membership, or grown by one since this all started. So the club, the Rushmore Rotary is coping well, I guess, I would say. And of course, being the first Zoom meeting, there were some challenges and people that didn't understand mute and unmute, and didn't know how to use their camera or didn't know how to use their video. So there were some challenges. It was a little bumpy, but overall it was a huge success, and everybody was extremely happy to see their fellow Rotarians and to be a part of a meeting again, return to semi-normalcy anyway. Thank you.
Great news. That's awesome.
Daniel?
Yeah, Daniel from Yankton. We've definitely struggled with this. I put out a survey 2 weeks ago, I think, asking the club a bunch of different options on when or if they'd want to do Zoom meetings. And I only got 4 responses, and 3 of them said they did not want to meet via Zoom. So we have not done anything yet. Maybe if Ina or Nicole or anybody has suggestions on maybe how to increase people wanting to do that, we're all ears. But as of right now, we haven't done much since then, unfortunately.
This is Doug again. Daniel, I know we talked about it at membership, and then I talked with our president, with President Jean, about it. We didn't offer them an option about whether they wanted to or didn't want to. We just did it. I think a lot of people are intimidated by the idea of video conferencing and think it's really difficult and really awkward, and have doubts about it. And once they find out that it's very simple and all they need to do is point and click, it's a lot less threatening. And at any rate, I guess the point is, we didn't ask people if they wanted to or they didn't want to. We just did it. We had lower expectations, and as it turned out, the results far exceeded our expectations. So I think I would just try it. I mean, what do you got to lose?
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and you can, if you don't have a Zoom account already, a free Zoom account is a good way to, just do that. Check it out. It is a free one, and check it out.
Thank you.
And Roger? Nancy?
Yeah. We're going to try our first Zoom meeting this next week. So we're like Doug. We're not going to ask. We're just going to do it and see what happens. So we've got a lot of older members, but everybody has access to computers or cell phones. So we're going to see what we can pull off. I hope to let you know more next week.
Cool. Well, there's a hook for you, as if you get people using Zoom, that's a great way to interact with grandkids.
Exactly.
I don't know how to raise my hand, but I'm sorry. This is Keith Kuby from Yankton. The only thing I'm concerned about is having meetings for the sake of meetings is always a problem. And unless there's action items or things that need to be addressed, having these meetings to be collegial is always nice. It's hard to do it electronically, of course, but the aspect of just meeting because we should meet is another reasons why I think the younger generations are not as apt to do this. And so that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah. Great point. Well, let's move on to the next one. What's going on in your communities as far as COVID-19 projects? Are you getting out and helping? What are you doing?
Ina, this is Tammy. I thought I raised my hand, but I use so many different platforms that I'm not 100% sure if I got it done where I needed it to be done. So I'm going to want to go back and just share a bit about Sioux City. Because that's, really where I've been trying to get something going. It makes the most sense. Mapleton has decided just to they're not gathering. They're of course a very small club. In Sioux City, the decision was made initially that during this time when we were thinking it was going to be a short period, that the people were just encouraged to go and do service to help people in need, but we weren't going to organize something as a club. This weekend, I suggested that maybe I would do a member orientation on Zoom during our regular meeting time, because we do have a number of people that they could do that. And it was also introduced Zoom as a format. And then at the same time I suggested that, someone else suggested, well, maybe we should have a social. And so I think that now that we haven't gathered for 3 weeks, that there's interest, people are missing it. And so next week, I think we're having a board meeting during that time, but on the 20th, then we'll do a member orientation. And then I expect that maybe after that weekly, we'll be able to do Zoom and have some interest in it. But that's kind of what's happened with the Sioux City Club. But also on those Zoom accounts, the club didn't know if they would have need really to use it on a real regular basis. So I am wondering about pursuing an AG account to make it available for those clubs rather than having every club have one if they don't think they're going to use it, regularly.
Perfect.
That's my update.
Perfect. So, the future's unknown and we don't know how long this is going to last, this physical distancing. One of the things I heard was it could go up to 18 months or until we get a vaccine. So this potentially could be long-term. Boy, I sure hope not, because that's tough, but we just don't know. So what's going on in your community as far as COVID-19 needs, and what are you doing about it?
Jennifer from Soma, and then I think we have Chuck from Marshall, with their hands. Oh.
Good morning. This is Jennifer from Soma from Brookings. Just wanted to share with you, we did our first Zoom regular meeting last Tuesday over the noon hour. It was the joke that we weren't eating. So we always encouraged if they wanted to bring a sandwich, and some people did, but then they didn't feel comfortable eating in front of the video. We had our city manager speak on what was going on in our city, which he prefaced when he started. He goes, this can change by the second minute out, things are changing so rapidly. So he goes, next week at our Rotary meeting, he goes, it might be completely different from what I'm telling you right now. But he gave us a really great update presentation. Nicole had recorded it for us. It actually went out to his staff and people in the Brookings community, for those that want, and SDSU, to SDSU students could see what was going on and why the importance of staying home, not being out at the parks and things until our parks were closed, but just people still are getting together. Moving forward, I would encourage you all, if you're looking for meetings, ask your city manager. This week we have our city engineer talking about upcoming projects and are they going to be able to do them or on hold. Next week is we're having our chamber president speak, and then the following week after that, a local doctor to give us a front of what's going on within our local clinics. So there are speakers out there willing to speak, and especially on the COVID-19. I mean, like we all know, the information keeps changing all the time. We just got to be in front of it. And I got positive feedback. I polled a few people after we got done with our meeting last week. Because again, all ages, from 20s to 90-year-olds were on our Zoom meeting. And everybody, the ones that I polled, different age groups, they said it was fantastic. So again, we're learning, just stay positive. I mean, yeah, even me, learning how to do the Zoom. I've done more Zoom meetings now in the last week that I could ever imagine. And I'm getting better at it every time. So I'm done. Thank you.
Cool. Another idea for your club meetings is maybe to have a couple of practice meetings. You know, just people that aren't familiar with the platform, get on and just play with it with a little help from somebody who knows something. So we are going to go ahead and.
Ina, this is Steve Sikorsky.
Yes.
I'm on the phone only. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, our club met yesterday, had a program, but we chose to use Facebook Live instead of Zoom because anybody in the entire district could watch it. We have a member that has a studio that we use, and our incoming president and the president of the South Small Business Association in South Dakota was our speaker. Yeah, Mondays at noon. Next Monday is Senator John Thune, and I polled everybody. The executive board in our club, and they decided that Zoom was not for us. So we've been using Facebook Live forever, and that way, if you miss the program, you can go back and watch it on your computer, and so that's the way downtown Sioux Falls went.
So anybody that likes your Facebook page can attend a Facebook Live meeting, is that correct?
That's correct, and as I said, next Monday is Senator John Thune at noon in Sioux Falls.
Okay, great, thank you.
Ina?
Yes?
Just a comment. This is a prime example of how we leverage the technology for specific situations, because if we're just trying to push group meetings out, Facebook Live is probably a more common media to do that. If we want to have discussion like this, then we might think about Zoom. So we'll be learning a lot about the different ways of using social media to accomplish our view. And I just think this is a fantastic opportunity for Rotarians, whether we're kicking or screaming, to come into the digital era and deal with the very things that our young professionals have wanted us to do for some time.
Yep, good point. And for those that didn't know, that was Dan Little, our DGE, the next in line for the governorship. So we are going to go ahead and get started with Tom Gump and Carmen Hansen. If you will do the honors of introducing Tom, and I'll change my screen. I'll stop sharing, and then Tom can get up and running on his presentation.
This is Carmen Hansen. I'm the district membership chair. And Tom and I have spoken a couple of times. He has been helpful in any expansion that we've been looking at. And currently that's all now on hold, but Tom gives a unique perspective on when you think of starting a club, it doesn't take a lot of people, and it comes at it from a different focus area where you bring people together based on a certain like interest. So Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Carmen, and thank you, Ina, for having me here, and Dan and Doug for allowing me to come. I'm going to share my screen with you and just have a PowerPoint, because we're going to have some interesting things regarding where we're sitting in membership in North America and Canada. So, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. And I know Ina said sometimes it's best to hold questions to the end, but please go ahead and ask me questions all along the way. I've started my little stopwatch here on my watch to make sure I don't take more than the 15-20 minutes allotted. But I'm here to help you and help you start new clubs. Respectfully disagree that you have to wait until after Corona started, it's over until you start a new club. Because right now we're in the middle of actually starting a club for ending human trafficking, and we're having a lot of people join, and it's an e-club. So maybe it's just a different type of club that we can start right now. So how many people here think we actually have a membership problem? I think most people would realize, especially in North America, we have a membership problem. And typically when we start a membership campaign, we just talk about, you know, bring in new members, go tell people about it. But I think RI in general is maturing a little bit in its view of membership, especially in North America. And really membership is kind of a regional situation. So before we get started in how to start a cause-based club, I just want to take a minute here for us to all together jointly sit in the problem that we have. So RI membership's been at approximately 1.2 million for 24 years now. I mean, we've been the same while other organizations, think about others you know that have grown rapidly, we have been the same. And this is the first time right now, just recently, that North America has fallen below 30% of total RI membership. So, and we've seen this in our redistricting, you know, our zone has been redistricted just recently, and that's because of membership loss. And if we follow the current membership trend, some experts in Rotary have us having no members in North America by 2050, which would be an absolute shame. So I just want to show you some of the actual statistics, the most recent ones from RI. If you look from 2004 until last year, membership decline in the US and Canada was 20%, but worldwide it was less than 1%, which I think is very interesting. So if you look at this is membership by region. If you look at the far left of your screen, in that period, India has grown by 30,000 Rotarians. And if you look on the far right, that's US and Canada, we've shrunk by over 35,000 Rotarians. So America's really good at recruiting. And last year we actually had more members in than we ever had before. But the bad news is we actually had a record number out. So, you know, in the US, we lose most of our members in the first couple of years. And I was talking to Tom Thorfinson at RI yesterday, and they've studied a lot of organizations during world wars and major world events. And it seems that the members we lose most frequently in things such as a worldwide pandemic, they usually are members in the first 2 years. So if we're thinking in our district 5610 about how to keep members, we might want to think about the ones that have just joined. And I think the virtual meetings and what you guys are doing to have these different platforms and Zoom is just wonderful. It keeps people engaged. So what RI has come up with, they've chosen 19 specialists around North America, Mark Maloney and his staff have, to become new advocates for creating new clubs. And I'm one of those, and I'm in the person assigned to your area. So that's what I am selling today, is new clubs, starting new clubs. But this actually matches my personal experience. This is the most recent report from the end of last month of our districts in our zone, Zone 29. And there's only 2 districts with positive growth. And one of those districts is 5950. And I highlighted that one in green because it's my district and it's the one I understand the best. And we had positive net growth this year so far of 2.81%. So if you look at how we grew, we started a veterans club, which we started with 20 members. That's a minimum to start a club. And we went to 51 members pretty quick. And then last month we started a passport club and we added 20 members. So if you take the number we started at the year and what we are at the end of last month, it's a net growth of about 74 members. Well, if you take what we have with the Veterans Club and you take what we have with the Passport Club, that's 71 members. So 71 members out of 74 growth came from that new club. So I really believe what I'm preaching here today is that if you start new clubs, it works. And I have a quote later on in the PowerPoint.
Tom, excuse me, Tom, this is Lauren. What do you mean by Passport Club?
A passport club is a club designed for when members are actually leaving a club and they're moving jobs and they don't know if they want to start another Rotary Club where they're going. They could actually be a part of a passport club where they get credit for attending different meetings or different events from different clubs. So you might belong to the Sioux Falls Club, but if you go to another club that's further north or further south, that would count as part of the passport club. And I can get to Ina and Dan a list of the different kinds of clubs. And Passport One, that it works pretty well, especially when you get, and I don't know how active your district is in this, but RI sends you membership leads when people go to the international site and say, I might be interested in Rotary. And if it's in 5610, they all go to your membership person, and they can actually take those, they can get a printout for the last 5 years of those interested, and maybe you can start a passport club with that number of people. You only need 20 people to start a club, and only need 8 people to start a satellite club.
Tom, in
Yes, ma'am.
District 5610, Carmen's doing an awesome job with those referrals.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carmen, for doing that. And it's, one of the things I really want you guys to take out of this is that it's not hard to start a club, because I think a lot of folks think it's hard, and it's not as hard as you think it would be. Like, for example, our Veterans Club, I'm not a veteran, and we don't have an active military base anywhere in the state of Minnesota, but we were able to start a Veterans Club, and it wasn't that difficult. And if you want our help, like I understand from Ina that you guys are thinking of maybe starting an eco club, which we did last year, and it's doing great, and or a Veterans Club. If you guys want to start with just 8 members, I mean, if you find 8 vets and you want to put them together, we can start a satellite club that way. And you can be a sister club of our Vets Club, and that Vets Club can share everything with you. And that would count as a win in Ina's column for a new club this year. And that's not hard to do. You can get 8 vets together, and then you'll be surprised when you bring 8 folks together, they grow the rest of the club on their own. So that's what I want you to get out of today. Anything else, that's easy. It's not as hard as you think to start a club, but keep the questions coming. So I was helping Houston start a Veterans Club because they have a lot of veterans there. And they asked, what do you do and when do you do it? And I really appreciated that question because, it's funny, sometimes you do things, but it's not until somebody asks you to teach it or talk about it that you actually really think about what worked and what didn't work. So I just broke up into quarters, saying, let's say it takes a year to start a club. It doesn't necessarily take that long, but just to give you a timeline. And I broke it down into a planning. You plan for the club, you publicize the club, you draft some documents, and then an important part of it is that you celebrate when you get done, because then they're excited. And I won't go into too much detail about this, but I just want to talk about general parameters of how to start a club and give you this as a reference. And there's also a manual I put together on how to start a club that's a little bit more detailed than this PowerPoint. But you could always ask Ina for that, and she can get you a copy of that. So most of this presentation came from questions I received from people about, well, how do we start a club, and specific questions. So one question we usually get is, how do you get money to start a club? Now, the old model is to have, your largest club in your area start a club. And what RI has found out is when you start a club, first of all, there's a misconception out there that if you start a new club, you're cannibalizing another club. So I asked Brian King to put together a study of the last 5 years of clubs that started in RI. How many were former Rotarians or current Rotarians versus new Rotarians? And long story short, it turns out 85% of new clubs started were individuals who are not Rotarians. And it always helps to have a Rotarian or two, because when you fill out the application, you actually have to list 5 officers: president, president-elect, membership development, foundation chair, and secretary. So it's good to have a Rotarian or two that knows what they're doing, but usually it's people, and I was asked to talk about cause-based clubs, and that's my favorite kind of club, because I really think that people have a passion, and they join for that passion, and they'll drive farther to go to a meeting because they're passionate about it, and they tend not to leave in a year or two because they are staying there for the passion. Now, when you read the RI materials, it seems like a lot of stuff that you have to file to start a club. And really, if you get your list of members, there's really one short application that you have to fill out. And it's not hard to do. And you have to do bylaws. They just assume you sign a new member application that says you'll follow the standard constitution. So you have to file bylaws, you have to file your members' names, and you have to file one small application, which is a 2-pager. So the other question that I usually get is, how do you start having meetings? And what I found works pretty well is to have small meetings who are interested, just a lunch meeting or a get together of 3 or 4 people. And you got to always remember it's about them and it's about their cause. And I know we're passionate about Rotary and we bleed blue here, but sometimes you have to, if you're starting a Vets Club or Eco Club, they're starting it because they realize that it's a mechanism where they can get district grants and they can get local grants and they could even get global grants. But sometimes we have to dial down our Rotary speak and listen to them and what they want. And really it's going to be their club. So I found it's best to ask them when they want to meet, where they want to meet, who do they want to have as members, what their guiding principles are. And I found out if you have big meetings right away, there seems to be so many questions asked that there gets to be a built-in resistance. But if you meet in small groups, they seem to work better. And then when you get 3 or 4 groups and you start getting more in the area of a dozen folks who are interested in joining, then that's a time where you can start having larger group meetings. And I found out what really works if you get a facilitator. It doesn't have to be a paid facilitator. You can get someone in your community that does this on a regular basis, maybe a preacher or pastor or something like that, and have the club just have an open discussion of what they really want and what they really want their club to be about. And you know, it's funny because a lot of folks, when you talk to them and they get fired up after a presentation like this and they say, I'm going to bring a bunch of teachers together. We're going to have a teachers club. But I think the important thing to remember is not the people you're bringing together, but the cause that people want. So if it's a literacy club and they're passionate about literacy, having their own club, every grant could be about literacy and most speakers can be about literacy. It's hard, like in our human trafficking, our End Human Trafficking club we're starting right now, we have a champion or 2 in most clubs in the 3 districts that are together trying to start this. But a lot of times they get frustrated because they'll have a speaker, but then they can't have another speaker about ending human trafficking for a year or so because it's not of interest to everyone because everyone's got different passions. Some might be freshwater, that kind of thing. The one thing that you can do as District 5610, instead of having a large club, it takes about $1,500 to start a club. That's been our experience. You have to pay a little bit to RI for each member, and then you have things like banners and bells and badges. And, but a lot of clubs in your district, you'll be amazed how they all get together and get behind whatever club you're starting. And maybe the Sioux Falls Club wants to donate the bell and engrave it saying, hey, we are glad the Veterans Club is starting and we're glad we had a chance to help you start it. And here's our bell and here's our club name and the date. But anyways, one thing that we did in our district that helped a lot is we passed a pro-growth district policy. And what we did was we just said, if you're a new club and you're forming, we won't charge you any district dues for the first year that you're in existence. Because a lot of times it takes a year or so before you find the real value of Rotary and you find your friends and you realize you don't want to leave. So that barrier to entry of district dues, because you know we have international dues, district dues, and local dues. And you need some local dues, even if you don't have meals, for the local club to operate. And you can't get RI dues waived, though maybe with the current coronavirus, maybe there will be some change in that in the future. But if you can get the district to do that, that's a great investment for the district because the district is going to be getting dues from all these members who join this club. If you have 100 people join from a couple new clubs you start next year, that's not too hard, 50 members times 2 clubs. That's a good amount of revenue. So it's worth, you know, And most of the times, like when Dan is making his budget for next year, he's basing it on the current number. So if you're adding new members to the district, Dan's budget really hasn't accounted for that because he's probably is basing it on the current number. But anyway, so then that will help some of maybe the smaller clubs want to start a club, but they're worried about it's going to cost $1,500 that we don't have. That would solve that problem if you had a pro-growth policy in the whole district. So when it comes to actually documenting, it's good after you have your initial meetings to have some kind of club brochure. And the brochure is going to change over time because it may just be, like when we started the Veterans Club, is a picture of a veteran on the front and the general ideals that came up with some fun pictures of some initial meetings. But then we didn't know, because we didn't have our large group meetings, when the club was going to meet, where they were going to meet, that kind of thing. But having a club brochure is a good idea. And then when members start coming in, it's always good to get, on the new member application, you can fill it all out just by writing it out on a form, or they have an Excel spreadsheet. If you do the Excel spreadsheet and you actually update it as you go, then you know who's joined. Then you can say, okay, we have 8 people. Let's go to those 8 people and ask them each to bring in a friend. And if that works, then you get 16 people and you know, that kind of thing. But just remember, we're here to help you. So if you actually want us to help you fill out the paperwork, I can do that. It's not a big deal. And then one thing I think that's important is you have to celebrate once you get the club form. This is our charter night for our Veterans Night. And it's interesting when you start getting people and you start saying, hey, we're about to join this club. We want you to be a charter member of this club, not just a regular member, but a charter member. So you will always be a charter member. 15 years down the road, when the club's having its charter night, you will be one of the original charter members. And we kind of go all out. We make a membership certificate. And if you would zoom in on this picture, you can see it's a charter member certificate. And we actually gave them charter member pins. And we went ahead and got them framed. I mean, just for a little bit of money, it makes them happy. And we gave them charter member pins. And if you can get special pins made, you can just call Russell Hampton. And we have veterans pins. If you want to start an eco club, you can get their own club pin, get their own club flag. But it is important to celebrate because it's not just starting the club, but you want to put them on a good position to grow. And if you get them excited, it usually works. So I'm at 18 minutes, so I'm going to stop and take questions now if anybody has any. I love questions.
Where did the idea of the Vets Club come from? I'm intrigued.
I run the annual 4th of July parade for our city. And the night before the 4th of July and the 3rd of July, we have a veterans dinner where we invite 200 veterans, and we have ribs and food, and we have a band and all that kind of stuff. And it's a lot of fun. So I was thinking, wow, why don't we start a veterans club? Because I've been in clubs and it seems like they seem to be really hard-working members of the clubs that they're in. So I sent out a couple hundred letters, got a few responses. And it's interesting because if you actually, when you're starting a club, pull from other organizations that these members are a part of, it really helps you grow. So when we started the Vets Club, we probably had a half a dozen different Vets Clubs that were started for different purposes, like a nonprofit that dealt with homelessness for vets. Another one that dealt with trying to get vets jobs. So it's interesting, if you put those 5 or 6 people together, they pull from a bunch of different networks, and then you get them started at 20. I'm a big advocate at, we learned a lot, and whenever you do this, you learn a lot. And I'll tell you, when we started our Eco Club, it took like 1.5 years because we get a few people interested, and then nothing would happen for a while. Then we get a few more people interested, and the first people that were interested were gone away. I said, I'm not going to do that with the Vets Club. So, I mean, we started shortly after 4th of July with that initial group of letters. And by October, we were already, starting the club. And I tell you, it's a lot easier to go both feet in than it is to go little by little, because you'll lose enthusiasm along the way. And you got to keep them excited.
Did you get any pushback from DAV or VFW or other military organizations?
It's interesting. We were mostly got a lot of support. We had a couple people that said, well, I'm already a vet, I'm already in a club, why do we need one? And really when you explained, it's because we want to go out and serve veterans. I mean, we're going out, we got a $20,000 grant, the club did. I said we, I'm not a member of that club. A lot of times when you start a club, you go with the new club. But I brought a lot of folks into my club and I'm friends with them. So, but the Vets Club, they call me Dad. I don't know if that's an insult or not, but that's what they call me. They call me Dad. But I say we. The Vets Club went out and got a district grant for $20,000. And what they're doing, Lauren, is they're actually taking a game room in a veterans home for homeless vets, and they're making it a game room. It's a basement now, but they're putting in video games and they're making it all fancy and nice with nice floors and nice walls, pool tables, foosball, you know, that kind of thing. Because so much of vets, what they decided was they want camaraderie, because there's a high suicide rate with vets, and they figure if we just get vets together. But it was funny because our first large meeting that we had with the vets, I had a friend of mine come down from a couple hours north because he was thinking about starting one. And he came up to me in a group of vets and he said, I've been going to Rotary meetings for 20 years. I've never seen such cohesiveness in a club, because we had an outside facilitator and they say, okay, what do you want this club to be about? And they came up with their 4 principles, and camaraderie was one. But everyone who would give an idea, everyone was supportive of it because they all came from a similar set of values and they all respected each other. So it's there was some pushback, but there was an awful lot more pro for it. VFWs didn't mind at all because they saw their business as more of getting together and having social, while the Vets Club that we started was to do service. So they have blood drives. At the end of summer, if things get better with the COVID-19 virus, they are starting up a fundraiser where they take used RVs and fishing boats and recreational equipment, and then they're going to sell it back and use the proceeds to do good things for vets.
Tom, this is Dan. Do you know of any instances of cause-based clubs that are forming around COVID-19 and emergency preparedness?
You know, I don't. What most communities are finding out is that Rotary does not have a mechanism to be a first responder. I mean, we have Shelter Box as an exception, but we're not like the Red Cross. We do better actually at starting up funds and getting the money to where it needs to be. So, for example, in my community, the Edina Community Foundation started a COVID-19 community impact fund, and our club went to the corpus of its club foundation, not through the local grants, which we are giving out this week also, but we went in and took $5,000 from the corpus, put it in there, and now local organizations who do it better than Rotary, like Help at Your Door, who go deliver food actually to individuals who don't have computers and can't get food delivered. They've been doing it for 35 years. We're doing it that way. RI is trying to start a fund through USAID that's going to be a COVID release, disaster relief fund. Our district just pledged $75,000 to that yesterday. And so the Rotarians in Italy, that's where that money's going to. That's the first place. RI is trying to do that. And the DDF, it has to be global DDF, can't be cash, is going to go to 4 hospitals in Italy for medical equipment. If the memorandum of understanding gets signed by USAID and Rotary through the partnership they're working, the DDF that we're given now is going to be reimbursed. So there's something coming, but that's on a RI level. And a trustee level, it's not, I don't know of any clubs that are starting that. They're deciding to help other organizations that already exist.
In our district, we have pledged to contribute some of our DDF to a Mali club, District 9101, who's standing up a COVID response. So we're waiting to see what that project looks like right now before we push the send button.
That's wonderful. You might be onto something, Dan, because I think people really want to give and they want to do something. So maybe a cause-based club based on that. And maybe make it disaster relief in general. So when this problem is done, hopefully in 18 months to 2 years, we can direct it towards other.
Well, the thought comes from, what do we do right now? How many people want to send money to Italy when it looks like your local hospital's short on PPE? And so this is a particularly interesting situation from that standpoint. But the whole idea of cause-based clubs is the fact that there are people that share our ideals in doing service, but they are not interested in noon meetings and paying $10 or $12 for meals that they don't eat. And so when we jump on the opportunity, find excited individuals that will meet with an e-club and immediately start working on something, that's a great way to recruit new Rotarians.
I love it. I think you can do that, Dan.
One more question for Tom. Okay, I do want to point out that we have some more programs coming up. So next week, the entire 45 minutes will be devoted to a panel of Darla Beal from Brookings County Youth Membership, Kelsey Collier-Wise from Vermilion United Way, Matt Gasson with Feeding South Dakota, Tammy Lee with Red Cross, Kurt Loudenbach with Prairie Foods, and Jesse Schmidt with the Better Business Bureau. And we will be discussing the needs in local needs and how clubs can help in their communities. So that's coming up. Tom, again, thank you. Awesome presentation. We really, really, really appreciate it. So with that, meeting adjourned.
I know.
Yes.
For anyone that wants to hang on here, I just wanted to ask a simple question. Maybe I got on just a little late, but are there any service opportunities that people are seeing within the district that we can be responding to? So in specific situations or ways that we can rally for that?
Well, we spent our first 15 minutes with a section that kind of talked about that, and we didn't get past how clubs are communicating. So we didn't get a lot of that. Any of you that want to stay and want to discuss this or share some ideas, you're sure more than welcome.
This is Bert. I'll just share that last week's Rotary South had Janet Kidhams from the Helpline Center 211, and she directed us to the 211, which I think is a statewide helpline center that people can reach out to for volunteer opportunities.
And one idea that was presented was in your club meetings, your online meetings, invite a city administrator, a city engineer, a health professional to talk about what's going on in the community. And things are changing so fast that it's important to stay out in front of it.
I'm looking specifically for projects, things that anyone thinks that the district should be taking up at this time.
Carmen, you had your hand up.
I was just going to mention our club in Rapid. There's a couple of items that came up as needs, and it might be even district-wide, and that is the blood resource Vitalant. They are short of blood drives, so that might be something that our district might want to do, or possibly the homeless shelters are really seeing a huge drop in services and support.
Thank you. Both great ideas.
Chuck, do you have something to share from earlier as well? If you can unmute.
Yes, well, being in Minnesota, we've been sheltered for about 3 weeks. Our club president a few weeks ago made a deal with the local subway owner and brought it up to the Vera Hospital, found out that their food program, lunch program shuts down at 1 o'clock, and they had a lot of nurses that ended their shift at 7 o'clock and had to go to some meetings. So he brought up a whole bunch of sandwiches to them. And then his daughter and some other members' daughters have done some babysitting for some of our medical people. And speaking of city administrators, our Sunrise Club in town here that meets Thursday mornings, their incoming president is the city, one of the city administrators. So we try to get as much news as we can from that. And then we have some city people, which our city engineer's been a member of our club and past president. So, but basically we're just in Minnesota here, just really hunkering down with keeping the social visits to a minimum and making phone calls to some of our elderly members. That's all I had.
I didn't mean to hijack your adjournment, Dinah. I just wanted, if there's any specific things, please get to Nicole or myself or Ina, because what's happening in your area might be something that's district-wide or multi-district in nature as well.
This is Lauren. Just an FYI for everyone, and there'll be more coming out, but Jennifer Jones, one of the RI directors, has agreed to speak to our club on the 17th of April at 1 o'clock Central Daylight Time. Our club normally meets at noon, but we're going to start at 12:30 with club business, and then 1 o'clock she will come on and talk to us, and Nicole is going to handle this for us so that the entire district can log on if you're so inclined. And just Google her, Jennifer Jones. She's out of Canada, and outstanding individual. And I'm confident it'll be a program that you won't want to miss. So just FYI.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. That's awesome. It's an awesome opportunity to see our RI director speak to us here in our little district. One of the things that I'd heard, Dan, is that we should think long-term also in how we respond. It's not just immediate. It's just not while we're locked down. It's recovery. It's when we're coming out. So I'm hoping that next week we'll get a lot of ideas. It will get stimulated with things that we can do. This panel will tell us some of the needs and stuff that we're probably not aware of. And, we might have a good project come out of that. Well, I'm going to get off and start my day. Thanks everybody for showing up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.